Round 19 of 2024. Charlie Cameron and Toby Bedford are given 3 week suspensions for what were, on the face of it, good tackles. The game's gone, was the general consensus. What is this? Soccer? Actually, what if it was? What if the AFL suddenly collapsed and a team of AFL footballers decided to switch sports to soccer? Well, the only recorded soccer game between these codes happened in the 1940s, with the VFL Stars losing 8-0 to an NPL side, making Jack Dyer play his sexism card that would eventually see a worrying amount of use. But what if modern footballers took to the rectangular pitch? Luckily, I have just the tool to find out. Football Manager is perhaps the most detailed sports simulation game on the planet. I've sunk an embarrassing amount of hours into different versions over the years and even tried to make a series out of the game some time ago. Oh my god, half a decade ago. Jesus Christ. So, I'll be using Football Manager 23 as I'm too cheap to get the latest version, and its pre-game editor to insert who else but my beloved Adelaide Crows into the A-League. I have followed a couple of basic rules for my scenario, attribute, and player creation. My scenario is, the AFL goes irredeemably bankrupt before the season starts. How it happens doesn't matter. I choose to believe that Andrew Dillon accidentally opened a scam email that sent all the AFL's money to some 14-year-old in Chatswood. The clubs, without a league to play in, either fold or choose new sports. The Crows choose soccer and have a couple months to prepare. Soccer is a fundamentally different game, and these players will not be used to dribbling and the round ball in the main. To make sure the Crows don't accidentally become a team of Messies, I've limited the maximum of these technical attributes to 10 instead of the regular 20, except for these selected attributes. And I've done this only for players with no prior round ball experience, which for the Crows is everyone except for Rochelle, Keane and Gallagher, to my knowledge. If we can get the footage, look at this touch from Rochelle. He's a soccer boy. Physical and mental attributes are free from these limits, which is fair. I feel that most senior AFL players are stronger and more athletically fit than the lion's share of A-League players anyway. The club structure will be 25 players in an A team and 25 players in a B team. Players will freely transfer between the two as needed by the CPU. A transfer embargo has been placed on the club, so no new players will enter. To fulfill the 50-player roster, 5 sample development players of my selection will be included. They won't matter. I'm fairly sure that none of them ever actually started or even featured in a senior game across the entire experiment. The lineup and attributes of such are my interpretations of the skills of the 2024 Adelaide Crows, a somewhat average side in a somewhat average year, based off of my experiences watching them for some time. These ratings will not be perfect. I can only hope they're adequate enough and representative enough of the vague abilities of these men if they transferred sport. I was really worried about this, but then Big Ant decided to make Joel Lamarty better at set shots than Darcy Fogarty and Nick Larkey, so who the hell cares, really? This Crows team will be injected into the A-League alongside an Auckland City team that has not been altered from its existing form in FM23 to make an even 14 teams. Each team will play each other thrice, resulting in 39 games, as well as participating in a League Cup, with the reserves playing in their own comp and in a revised Australia Cup. Like the real A-League, a finals playoff will occur between the top 5 league teams. Should I have kept it at a 26-game season like real life for a more direct parallel? Maybe. I just thought the 39-game season would test the Crows out better and give more of a chance for their superior physicality to shine through. This experiment will be repeated 50 times. Games tallies, goals and assist numbers for the main stars and league table stats will be kept, as well as a selection of other stats and the Crows' positions relative in those stats. Players will retain their basic positions as much as possible as per this chart or diagram, whatever I decide to put up here. As there is no direct equivalent in soccer to a ruckman or in football to a goalkeeper, I have defaulted to using ruckman as the goalkeepers. However, in early tests this proved really inefficient as they just weren't good enough, so I chucked Jordan Butts in goal as well, who otherwise would have been the third backup centre-back, which showed a vast improvement. So, how did it go? Well, not as good as expected. Like, literally. On pure strength of squad, this side hovered between 3rd and 4th in pre-season predictions, with Rankin and Dawson in the league best 11. Across 50 simulated seasons, though, the Crows averaged around 6th, just over mid-table, which makes sense. Their average points haul per game would place them 6th in the 2025 A-League table. Their average of 1.383 goals per game puts them in pretty poor company compared to real A-League numbers, but their defense was far stingier. However, I get the feeling that Football Manager can't quite simulate the weirdness that is the real A-League. Like, we never really got a 5-4 defensive atrocity like the Adelaide United game. The Crows' position distribution was wild, finishing in every possible position bar dead last, thanks to the Auckland United team not receiving any additions and just being plugged straight into the A-League, finishing last each and every time, a far cry from real life. The Crows' most common finishing position was their expected third, and the second most was fourth. And 10th.
Yikes.
They made the top 6 playoffs 26 times, crashing out in the first week 8 times. They made 15 semi-finals, not too shabby, but only one less than half. Of their 6 final appearances, the Crows characteristically only managed to convert 2 of those into A-League victories, not helped by the absence of Isaac Rankin for all of those fixtures, and Josh Rochelle for a couple, due to Asian Cup duty with the Australian national team. The League Cup was not such a success story. Adelaide were bumped from the comp after round 1 over half the time. 10 quarter-final exits meant they only made 13 semis, again losing over half. Their conversion rate in these cup finals was practically identical to their league finals, going 2 from 6. All in all, not exactly a powerhouse. Unfortunately, this was the only other contest the Crows could win, as, try as I might, I couldn't enter their senior side in the Australian Cup for the first season, only the reserves. They only progressed to even the top 8 in that competition once, making it to the semis where they got destroyed by Macarthur 3-0. Those reserves actually proved more than a match for their own league comp, although that comes with its own massive caveats. The reserve sides of all Australia-based teams are NPL affiliates, technically a separate entity from the main side as far as the game's concerned, and so play in those leagues. Basically like what the AFL is to the SANFL and the VFL, essentially. I wasn't adept enough to surgically insert these sides into a dedicated seconds league, so as such these titles became a 2-horse race with the Wellington Phoenix, with the 2 sides almost always registering 100 points in epic title showdowns that never really meant much. Stat-wise, we really start to understand how this team played. They were middle of the pack in retaining the ball, but tended to win when they kept it more. Aerially, they were a joke, well below league average in terms of headers won and header win percentage. You'd think they'd make up for that with their passing, but they didn't. Did they at least make up for that in their defense? Kind of. They tackled a lot, but not efficiently, and they didn't seem to block or intercept the ball at a consistently outstanding rate, and whenever they did, it rarely seemed to line up with when they won. No, much like in real life, they lent on their forward line. They averaged 5th in XG, shots, and shots on target, and that presents us with a weird problem. You see, the Crows were uniquely unsuited to being translated into a soccer team for many reasons. Firstly, their ruckmen are not remotely nimble, coordinated, or reactive, making them terrible goalkeepers. Secondly, their defenders aren't really that quick and are severely inexperienced, with their tall defenders being of a low general quality. This meant that despite regularly finishing with XG against tallies in the bottom quarter of the league, they very rarely kept clean sheets. Then we get to the issue of squad balancing. Aussie rules has an even split of midfielders, forwards and backs in general, with very little tactical flexibility. Soccer, meanwhile, often requires 3 or 4 times as many defenders or midfielders than forwards, and the forward line is Adelaide's strength. Any number of forwards can be used in any number of formations, but generally 1 to 3 are used. I decided to leave Matty Nix's preferred formation blank to avoid misrepresenting his style, letting the computer guide his path. And it did so poorly. Nix generally played a 4-3-2-1 with a defensive midfielder using only 1 forward, which is the meta formation in Football Manager 23. Usually you get very good results with this, but The Crows side is very unsuited to this. That lone forward was usually Taylor Walker with two wingers, generally Rankin and Keys, with Rochelle as a rotation option, and this failed to make any sort of use of the talents of Darcy Fogarty, averaging nearly 30 appearances per season, but with 87% of those off the bench, and limited Rochelle's input, the only person who's had proper soccer experience in the club, essentially. Phil Thorpe lay almost completely unused, with 2 starts across 50 seasons, his size unable to be utilised effectively. Adelaide simply had too many forwards to field, which bit into the midfield as Saligo and Crouch rotted on the pine as well. Hell, Lockie Scholl's best seasons came at right back. This showed in the Golden Boot race. From 50 seasons, Adelaide had the overall top scorer 4 times, with Adelaide's leading scorer being in the top 3 a further 8 times. Half the experiment saw a Crow in the top 5, while no AFL player graced the top 10 a staggering 13 times. Rankin led club goal scoring 31 out of 50 times, picking up all 4 league Golden Boots, with Walker, Rochelle and even Ben Keys hoovering up the rest of the club honours. Assists were a different story. Sloane and Dawson kept the forwards well fed, taking out 17 of Adelaide's 20 assist titles, with the men in the tricolours taking 15 further podium spots. The best effort was a mammoth 17 from Sloane in season 26, which sadly ended in a quarter-final that wasn't really all that close. The Crows had the league MVP 12 times, with 15 other appearances on the rostrum. Of Adelaide's winners, Rankin saluted the most in the league with 6, including 2 seasons where he averaged a player rating over 7.6, which is very, very good, with Dawson and Keys splitting the rest evenly. These 3 featured heavily in the team of the season, basically this simulation's version of the All-Australian. Dawson made the most appearances with a staggering 32. Rankin also popped up in over 20, Sloane and Keys each got around a dozen, Walker and surprisingly Scholl pipped Rochelle's 4 by 1 each, Josh sharing that tally with another surprise packer in Mitch Hinge, with Laird and Maxi getting a couple each. I mentioned Matty Nix earlier. I gave him these stats with an overall current ability of 95 out of 200 among the lower end of the A-League spectrum, which makes sense for these reasons. I put pressure on him, about as much as I would expect a coach in his 5th season with no finals ventures to have. In most saves, he failed. He got sacked 31 times. He averages a win rate of approximately 36%, regularly took trips below 20%, and in the very first save he went 1 and 2 and 10, earning his ticket to Centrelink after only 13 games. Plus, he ostracised Matt Crouch so hard he moved to and of course he only won 2 finals with the 3rd strongest team on paper. Let's run through them and the near misses and see if we can learn anything. The first dub was Save 17, their first final appearance. Almost unstoppable all season, winning the minor premiership with 60 goals scored, including 15 from Golden Boot winner Rankin, they dominated possession en route to a final showdown with City. The Crows score first, but Melbourne equalises, taking it to extras where Ned McHenry warms my cold steel heart by coming off the bench and scoring the winner. Save 23, shipping only 9 less goals than the prior save where they came 12th. This was also the save where the reserves made a storybook Oz Cup run. While possession was their strong suit, not much else was. Their defence got lucky with 14 clean sheets despite finishing mid-table in expected goals against and last in tackling efficiency. Despite getting 6 guys into the team of the season, the Mariners finished well in the final, winning 2-0. Save 32, again their reserves pulled off heroics, this time going invincible in the league. Adelaide scored an insane 73 goals, including 19 from league leader Rankin. Sloane provided the most assists while Keys won the MVP, with the Crows even making the League Cup final against a different Melbourne side. Sadly, they lost both as the Crows had been lucky, but this time on the other side of the ball. They ranked 6th for XG4, scoring 21 goals more than expected. They failed to make their opportunities count though, losing the League Cup final even when their opposition had 10 men, and not really getting into it in the A-League final itself. Save 38. Nix had been sacked after 33 games despite having the eventual league goal and assist leaders as well as an MVP, this time Dawson, his replacement winning 4 of the last 6 games to just limp the Crows into the finals. Then the Crows went on a run, making it to the final against Victory. And proving that life is unfair, the Crows managed to completely outplay the Victory, only to lose in the 89th minute. Damn. Save 39. Nick shows he can do it himself as, despite a fall in star individual outputs, the team plays better as a unit, winning the minor flag. 7 Crows make the All-Star team, including Scholl and Hinge, who helped the defence gain 16 clean sheets, the most the Crows got in any experiment. Possession football again translates well to the final. It was a hometown affair, neither of the keepers flattered themselves, but unfortunately United broke our hearts with a penalty in extra time. Save 45. The Crows average 57% possession, their best across any experiment, and insane enough to counter their XG total being only good enough for 8th, despite taking the most shots on target. Luckily, the defence stands up with only one club having a better XGA, rewarding Hinge, Scholl, and for the first time Max Michaelani with all-star slots. City again faces them in a final, and this time it's Adelaide who win despite a lower XG. But all this doesn't outweigh this. Our simulated Matty Nix has underperformed. Just like the real version, I would say. So, I thought, with my seasoned FM experience, could I do a better job in a single season? Let's talk tactics. Nix's one-striker system, as I said, fails to make the most of Adelaide's strength, its forward line, and more specifically its twin towers of Walker and Fogarty. Fogs regularly contributed to around 11% of scoring whilst getting on average under 5 starts per year. This changes with my first tactic, a 5-2-3. We play with a tall target man, either Fogarty or Thilthorpe, leaving room for a Rankin-Walker double salvo. This more attacking tactic has a conservative brother, a 5-3-2. Both of these look to retain the ball but strike on the counter, putting the ball in low and pressing high. We cross low as even despite having tall timber, we're crossing to guys who don't know how to head the ball, so let's get it to feet. If it does come in the air, the defence is going to be obsessed with marking the 2 tall guys, and when it spills to the floor, Rankin and all these other guys are going to absolutely feast. The final tactic is an attacking 4-2-2-2, using wingers that tuck in to find room on the narrow Adelaide Oval pitch. This immediately worked wonders. Despite injuries to Walker and Rankin at various points, which incidentally cost Tex a shot at the Asian Cup squad, and despite players getting far more yellow cards under my system and thus getting banned more, the Crows were no lower than 2nd across the entire year, despite my career manager's stats being absolutely awful. Plus, the system worked so well in the reserves that despite me forgetting to make the seniors available almost every single time, they made it all the way to the Australia Cup final. They win it, even without help from the seniors because they're playing the League Cup final on the same day. The seniors have to work hard for it against Victory, having 10 of their shots blocked until Laird breaks through with a thunder bastard in the 90th minute. The league was easy enough. The Crows and Melbourne City ran away to a cantering 1-2, so I sacrificed the minor trophy to rest players up as we had a lot of injuries and players 1 yellow away from a suspension. The final series was no sweat, and then we arrived at the big dance. It was an even match and a terrific contest. City make the most of an Adelaide defensive atrocity to convert through Adiyah. Then very few real opportunities crop up until Taylor Walker from a deep free kick spies, of all people, Max Michaelani at the back post. His header from what would have been all of 15 yards across the goal on Formosa, a very capable keeper, levels the scores. Then the final breakthrough, 95th minute. Melbourne City have it deep in their back half. Darcy Fogarty presses forward, forces the goalkeeper into an error. My boy, Ned McHenry, intercepts, puts the pass straight through to Fogarty, who scores. Unfortunately, Fogarty's done too much. In his attempt to press, he finds himself in an offside position, and what would have been the winner is cancelled out. Extra time produces nothing, so we're left to rely on the lottery of penalties. Of the first 7 penalty takers, no one misses except, ironically, Melbourne City's goal scorer in Adiyah. Mark Keane steps up to the plate, the only player in this shootout, indeed in this Crows matchday side, with round ball experience. He misses. Luckily, Andrew Naboot, one of the biggest dickheads in A-League history, gets some karmatic justice and misses himself. It all comes down to Rory Sloane. He does it. We win the A-League at my first and only time of asking. I was astounded by the realism. Will Hamill got injured straight away, Matt Crouch asked to leave, rumours circulated around Mark Keane's departure, Josh Rochelle got all uppity and egotistical about something, Elliot Himmelberg wanted to go home as well as also being a complete non-factor. It was crazy. I guess all this got balanced out by another honest-to-God team actually wanting Lockie Murphy. So, how do the stats compare to Nick's? Let's start with individuals. I rotated players around too much to win statistical categories, 10 starts for Ned McHenry indeed, but it was award season where Adelaide shone. Our boy Rankin got the MVP, while Max Michaelani became only one of 3 people in any of these experiments to steal the best young player title from Jordan Boss. Speaking of Jordans, Butts came second in best GK voting, but incredibly made the All-Star team for the only time, along with Max and pretty much half the squad. We did it on the back of the low crossing game, with over double the success rate of Knicks' outfits on average. In fact, the Crows completed more successful crosses than any other 2 teams put together for a mighty and palindromic XG of 69.96. Nice. And again better than any of the 50 seasons prior, as was the miserly XG against of under 30, made possible by a record-shattering interception total and a mid to good tackling game. We even got our heading game, up to scratch. Although, having Nick's in charge and my player manager on holiday, I think it simulates differently to having your player manager in charge across the whole thing, but bygones be bygones, I'm better than Nick's. I then wanted to see how the Crom would go in the Asian Champions League against the best sides in the continent. To give the Crom the best chance, I continued my solo save. And also to mirror real life, I added in Jim Peatling, Isaac Cummings, Sid Draper, and Alex Neil Bullen. And fat lot of good that ended up doing. We got knocked out of the playoff before the group stage even started by a team that had Marwan Fellaini in it, so yeah, that's fair. So, we go back to the crux of this video. Can an AFL team beat an A-League side at their own game? Well, if a side that finished 15th in the AFL can finish mid-table in the A-League, I reckon there's a very good chance that the very best side in the AFL can win it. All they need is a mobile ruckman who can actually use his hands, a smaller and more versatile forward line with one big key man, and a more experienced and well-rounded defence. Or just probably the All-Australian team, that'd probably do it. If you want to see me tackle this challenge again with a different team, or indeed the All-Australian team, let me know, and if there's enough interest, I might just do it again. This took me ages, so it might not be quick, but if that's something you want to see, I will set about doing it. And if it's not, well, I'll see you with something else next time.